Hey boys, before this video starts, I just wanted to let you know I finally started a Discord server like you all have been wanting me to do, and now that I have it out, here's the link, and I'll also have it in the description, so go and check it out, please. Alright, on with the video. I'm going to tell you about a movie. At least, that's technically what it will classify as. I've always felt a bit weird saying movie, since it reminds me of more old-fashioned words like talkie, when referring to a sound film when you were in the 1940s. Calling this an animated movie is also a technicality, seeing as how this film is barely able to move most of the time. Like, you've seen a low-budget 80s anime where most of the show consists of bad lip-syncing on a still background, right? Well, this is worse. It's just like that, but a dub by an unknown studio paid pennies on the dollar.
When a stronger spirit appears, the weaker spirit cowers. But all evil spirits cower before Jesus.
The very creation of this movie is shrouded in mystery. Who funded it? I don't know. What else did the people who worked on this do? Literally nothing else other than the director. The voice actors have no other credits, some of the voices are done by the children of other VAs in the cast, and the writer only ever wrote for this single movie. Some could assume it was a passion project, but to say this movie had passion put into it would be a crime on cinema. My hope is that almost everyone involved realized just how unsuited they were for the entertainment industry, and slowly backed away from it before their already ruined careers could get worse. The only actually successful person among the crew seems to be the same person who founded the animation company behind the film, which by the way is also the only film from this company, as most cartoons of this caliber are. Her name is Flamarion Ferreira, which is apparently Portuguese, and she's an animation industry veteran. She's worked on shows going as far back as the original Scooby and Scrappy-Doo show, to shows that only recently finished production, like Pen Zero. What baffles me the most in this review is how a woman of such a large catalog, someone who's gotten to know the animation industry for such a long time, could create something so amateurish, so below average that it was only ever aired once in 1991 on the USA Network. That's how obscure this is. It's basically Rhapsody Street Kids minus the extortion of tricked investors, look it up, and unlike Rhapsody Street Kids, this got a VHS release. Its production history, how long it took to make, and what it was meant to be are all shrouded in the thickest mystery with almost no documentation. The film I'm referring to is a little-known property called The Christmas Tree. If you thought Rankin Bass stop-motion films from the 60s and 70s were low budget, you were right. Those films look ass in retrospect, but this is a lower tier than that. You know that joke tier some listers like to create under the lowest tier for the absolute worst of the worst? Boom! I want to share this experience with you all because it was such a fever dream watching this for the first time. The first words to leave my mouth after watching it were, I need to make a YouTube video on this. This is the kind of movie that needs to be seen to be believed. It's the kind of shit you'd expect a first-year animation student to make while they were on pot. To describe this movie is to describe a fever dream, but I guess explaining that will be the most fun part, so let's just begin our journey. No. Our trial through the Christmas tree, starting with the story. I'll have to go beat by beat at some point of the story just because it's so difficult to wrap your head around, just a heads up. Okay, so the story starts with us being introduced to some orphans who are treated badly by their very own Miss Hannikin, Miss Mavilda. Where is Mr. Mavilda? Probably dead considering some of the sociopathic tendencies Miss Mavilda shows when she gets her hands on a weapon. But yeah, it's the normal fed mush while she eats really well, never gets them new clothes kind of thing. The way she hides this from the mayor is by using the exact same set of good clothes for two children whenever he comes around, and after looking at the children, he just gives Miss Mavilda 2 bags of money. Now to check her cash, bags, most likely full of gold and silver as if it were from a biblical tale. Then Miss Mavilda just goes off and gambles all that money for the children away. Such an evil woman, that Mavilda. An average person such as myself could probably do a better job inspecting the orphanage, considering the mayor just walks in, sees 2 nicely dressed children, and gives her money. Not only that, but why is the mayor inspecting this orphanage? Shouldn't that be the job of, well, the inspector? Don't ask questions, you silly asses. People who ask questions get the stick. Despite the fact Miss Mavilda likes to gamble, she is somehow able to never win a hand, always losing all the money meant for the children. The children were so depressed, they named a tree Miss Hopewell and believed it was magical and able to give them their parents back if they wished hard enough. Why a tree? Why not a fucking tree? Do you see anything wrong with that? Because I think it's just perfectly logical. A new family comes to live in Whateversville and they go to the mayor for help. I don't know why you go to the mayor to get a job, but who cares? He offers them the mother a job at the orphanage, and her kids can stay there too. Miss Mavilda dislikes Judy and her kids for hanging out with the orphans around the tree because she's evil and mean and doesn't want the mayor to know she isn't using her money on the children. If you don't want people to figure that out, then why do you ask for help, Miss Mavilda? They're going to figure it out pretty easily. There are 3 or 4 different occasions where Mavilda is gambling with the money she got, and every time she loses. I figured out why, though. It's because this woman is a cheater. Every poker player knows there aren't 5 aces in a deck, let alone all of hearts. This cheeky asshole's been cheating, and not even in a clever way. On the note of gambling, if she gets all her money and gambles it away in like a night, how does she feed the children at all, let alone herself? That's a pretty extravagant meal for someone who loses the money they're given so easily. Regardless, Judy finds out, and despite the fact that she said she wouldn't tell the mayor, Mavilda decides to frame Judy for theft by having a friend put something in her bag after she leaves to get a package. The kids decide they need to go and find the mayor, but they don't know where he lives, so they just send one of Judy's kids on a makeshift sled to go and find Santa with the help of a stray dog they let in sometimes named Licorice. Did I forget to mention this dog just knows the way to the North Pole? Because apparently he does. I don't know how they got a sled from nowhere. I don't know why Licorice knows the way to the North Pole. I don't know why the kids think Santa could help in this situation. It just works, okay? That's the reason I can accept that this little girl was not only able to sneak into the basket without the boy noticing, but she also was able to steal food from the pantry. They get attacked by a bear, the little girl falls down a cliff with the bear, and the boy and dog decide to just go back. The woman never made her delivery because of a car crash, and when she can't find her kids, she weeps the most emotionless tear I have ever seen. With her plans ruined, Miss Mavilda believes the last option is to destroy the tree. Why the tree? It feels like this entire film has been trying to call back to it, how it's magical and great, and how the children like to play with it. Not to mention Miss Mavilda seems just as concerned about knocking down the tree as she is for framing Judy. The film treats it like she's plotting the murder of a person or a pet who interferes with Miss Mavilda's plans, but this is a tree. It's done nothing but be a tree this whole movie. It has no conscience. It has no feeling. Go ahead and chop it down. It won't change the fact that you still have 2 missing kids, one presumed dead. There's this whole thing where the children and Judy protest Mavilda by standing in front of it, but right before it happens, the mayor pulls up to a hill with no snow that clearly had it before and after the shot. Right after that, the boy and his dog show up, and after telling Judy the bad news, the father, who was absent for this entire movie, decides to just randomly materialize for this scene. And what the hell? How about a full crowd? The mayor finds out.
Wait a minute, hold it. What happened with the money that I've been donating? Why didn't Mavilda buy toys for them? And look at them. They look like they haven't had new clothes in years. What if the inspector were to come?
Oh, so there is an inspector. I guess he was just as shit at his job as you, since you didn't know about this until now. Idiot. Miss Mavilda goes crazy with the chainsaw, and right before she cuts down the tree, a random bolt of lightning comes from nowhere through the tree to strike her as dead. I know a tree can sort of conduct electricity in a way when it's wet, but this tree was the opposite of wet. The temperature was below freezing level since snow is on the ground, and it isn't even raining or snowing. Wood itself is an insulator, not a conductor. Who cares though? The girl is safe because disgustingly realistic Santa saved her. Hooray! Now this poor family can adopt all these children and run the orphanage while Santa drops presents into homes via airdrop. The end. What a fucking ride.
Well, don't worry about Mrs. Mavilda. She's good now. She learned that you always win when you are good. Merry Christmas, everybody.
It makes no coherent sense, scenes randomly intercut between each other, and the ending was right out of left field, but really the good story was the friends we made along the way. Next point! The animation is probably some of the worst I have ever seen. Whenever a character decides to speak in any way that will usually consist of just 2 frames, they jitter about like they have Tourette's, and sometimes lose detail in their clothing or their general outline gets thinner. How is it possible to have inconsistent lines when you have only 3 animation cells to draw for a scene? Obviously, the animator was drawing the line, but due to him being up late working on the entire film by himself, he must have fallen asleep at several points and just started the next line without realizing he forgot to finish the previous. It's quite obvious when you think about it. Just kidding, this movie has 18 animators including assistants and 4 quality checkers, meaning they must have either watched a different movie or just said they checked the film because the entire entity is a mistake. It is a blip on our society. movie. Characters have intervals of up to 10 seconds where the only thing that moves are their mouths, or even less than that. Sometimes we're given still images with zooms and expected to take it as a finished product, and I mean it's not even something nice to look at. We get these horrific faces half the time. Professional storyboards have more fluidity than this movie. I doubt it even had storyboards considering how abrupt and sudden each transition is. Details on characters are basically non-existent. Having shaded characters isn't a must for good animation, but this is some of the flattest shit I've ever seen. There's a scene where Miss Mavilda is in bed, and for multiple other shots after that, she stays in bed, but randomly gains new clothes out of nowhere. Multiple scenes have repeated animation, like the poker scene. Miss Mavilda and her friends sure are stiff and easily manipulated via their lips to change what they're saying without seeing a major difference. I kid you not, there are scenes where the character is one skin color, it cuts away from them, and when they're back, they have a slightly darker or lighter tone. I never see that. More minor characters sometimes even change voices, and while most people wouldn't care enough to notice, I did. I wasn't kidding when I mentioned the lip syncing. It's like they had completely different dialogue and tried to go over it during post-production. I know small YouTube animators who are great at lip syncing completely on their own, but a huge team is somehow unable to do something that should be so basic, please. It's got all the classic low-budget signs, walk cycles, inconsistent coloring on characters. There was one occasion where the Christmas tree lit up, but to the left of the actual tree. I'm telling you, it gets baffling. Baffling is also the word I'd use to describe this when it tries to become realistic. Those faces are terrifying. I feel like I'm watching the Zelda CDI cutscenes all over again. This isn't technically animation related, but the transitions in this movie are pure garbage. One character will be talking about something, then it changes to a completely different scene, then back, then forth, then back again. Some transitions are more noticeable than others and can include sound effects. There are actual moments in this film where the camera cuts to a character and they open their mouths to speak, but then another character speaks. It feels like there was no animation direction. Speaking of sounds and voices, the sound mixing in this movie is awful. I know I'm not the greatest at mixing audio all the time. I used to have my microphone too quiet to the point I got plenty of comments about it on the daily, but I could do much better with the audio of this movie in every sense of the word. Animals like dogs and bears have sounds more akin to dinosaurs. I laughed the first time I heard the bear. Maybe it's just because the sound was so loud, but it did not sound like a bear. Characters will be talking, and I guess the voice actors will mess up their lines, but instead of doing a retake, they'll splice in another clip in the least subtle way possible. That's something that amateur YouTubers like myself do. Audio balancing to make it feel like the two characters talking are in the same room is a joke to this movie. Some characters will talk really loudly, and others will be very quiet. You need to turn up your volume just to be able to hear them. The voices aren't winning any awards on their own either, if you know what I mean. Every character acts like they have no direction other than Miss Mavilda, who just has the most bipolar voice imaginable. She goes from high to low in a matter of seconds, and it's hilarious. I refuse to believe any of the other voice actors got paid, let alone were looking to be voice actors. They have a monotone old Turkey Tom videos wish they could pull off. The kids are especially bad considering they're mostly the children of other voice actors in the movie. I guess it was Bring Your Child to Work Day and the team just went with it. I don't like the music either. It sounds like something a hack composer threw together in 10 minutes. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing else to say about this movie. It was lazily made, it sucks hard, and I recommend everyone watching this to go and see it. I haven't laughed so hard at a bad movie in a long time, and I think you're all gonna get a good kick out of it. Okay, Happy New Year to everyone watching this, and I'm going to sleep now. Goodbye.